somewhere above.
How's it going, guys? I just wrapped up another project with the 80D where I pushed it to the extreme, and once again I am just blown away by how capable this camera is. On this channel we talk about tips and tricks and how to get the most out of your DSLR camera, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about how to get the best out of a low light situation. So this shoot that I just wrapped up was for a local virtual reality parlor, which is an awesome place, but the whole environment is very, very dark with hardly any lights at all. That's kind of the mood. And it's really awesome to like play VR and socialize in that kind of environment, but for a photographer or filmmaker, that's an absolute nightmare. So I'm going to give you a couple tips that I did both in preparing for it and then also while shooting, because when you're in a dark environment, things can go very wrong very fast. So you might be thinking, since I have a 1DX, which is a full frame camera, why didn't I just solely use this and then not even care about the lighting? Well, the answer to that is kind of complicated. I did bring this camera, but only about 10% of what I actually used in the final kind of commercial was shot on the 1DX. Most of it was done on the 80D. Because of the compact design of the 80D, I was able to mount it on my Crane 2 and then just run around with that gimbal and getting awesome shots. For a majority of the wide shots that you're seeing, they were shot on the Canon 10-18i STM lens. Now this is one of my most inexpensive lenses, but because of the image stabilization and just how much I love it, I used it for like 50% of the shots. So to shoot a small budget commercial like this, you really only need a Canon 80D and a couple of their lenses. So you may be thinking, the 10-18 has a maximum aperture of f4.5, which is not good for low light at all. And then the Canon 80D has an APS-C size sensor, which is significantly smaller than the full frame, so that's not very good for low light. Why would you ever use this in not perfect lighting conditions? Well, the ISO surprisingly held up very well. But in order to do that, I had to shoot in entirely manual mode with manual ISO. And that's basically to make sure, since it is such a dark environment, that it's not trying to expose to make it look like it's a lighter environment. So one of the pre-production things, if you want to call it that, was to bring and set up a bunch of lights. Now, I don't have a whole lot of fancy lights. All I brought was two kind of medium-sized softboxes and then two of these RGB spotlights. And the combination of really nice soft white light along with a little accent of sharp blue just really popped. So when you're shooting in manual mode, the light sensor will show it being way too dark and it'll want you to bump up the ISO or decrease shutter speed or increase aperture. But you can't. You want to leave it like that because your subject should be properly exposed even if everything around it is almost pitch black. So I can't stress enough, if you know beforehand that where you're going to be shooting photos or video is going to be in a slightly darker than perfect environment, bring some lights. Because even though the 80D has surprisingly good low light for an APS-C sensor, you still got to work with it to make it look good. So I guess the moral of the story is you don't need a $6,000 camera or a full frame camera to get decent looking footage in low light situations. All you have to do is know how to light your subject. That's gonna wrap up this quick tutorial on how to get the most out of your 80D. I'm still learning about the 80D because it's just such an impressive and capable camera, and I'm also still learning about different lighting techniques because I find that really interesting, and because without any light at all, you're not gonna get any footage at all. So here's an interesting thought that I'm gonna leave you on, and I don't know if I'm gonna word this correctly, but here's the idea. By being a filmmaker, you're not just knowing how to operate a camera and moving a camera and stuff like that. You're also in charge of creating and manipulating the light that bounces off your subject that you record. With that, thank you for watching, and as always, don't forget to keep it pro.